Hello again, everybody. This is Steve coming to you with an introduction to another series that I've written, which I've mentioned before, called Land of the Lions, the first of which was Lion in the Wind. This series, or at least the first two books, predates the Earthfleet series. The original story for this with Lion in the Wind was originally written back in 2003. Lion of the Earth was written in 2004. Again, that I wrote them, shared them with friends. They liked them. They gave comments on them. Told me what they liked, what they didn't like, and gave me ideas on how to expand it, improve it, and stuff like that. The original story was only 20,000 words and was pretty much just the ending of this book here and how it finished. Not quite the same ending. It was a little different, but it was same general story. And people were like, that's great, but you did no character development. You did no background on the characters, who came where, what, and so on and so forth. Basically, I cut to the chase and skipped everything else. But again, I was still learning back then. I was trying to work my way out of short stories and into novels, so 20,000 words at that point in time was actually a pretty good accomplishment, given that a lot of my stories were no more than 5,000 to 6,000 prior to that. And eventually the story, I got ideas from my dad, like, tell where Burgon came from. How did, don't start with the ending. Start with, where did Burgon come from? What was his history? What was the reason for creating the lions? What was their purpose? And just different questions like that. And he really spawned a lot of ideas. The story itself grew from that paltry 20,000 over quite a few edits to something like 150,000 words. But then I realized I was basically just writing fluff, and I was like, yep, got to fix that. So I went in there and trimmed out the fluff and the superfluous stuff that didn't need to be there. I was trying to go for a bigger story and kind of overdid it, which, that nothing wrong with that. I mean, I know a lot of people who do that, because what you do is sometimes you'll overwrite a story, and you'll go back in and you'll cherry pick all the best stuff, trim off the stuff that didn't work or really didn't need to be there, or was superfluous, etc., like that, and then you end up with a really good story. I mean, that's, even now, I mean, I don't write write it up to 150,000 words and then trim out the fat. It's, I will go through a story now a little bit different ways. I'll write it through, and then I'll look at it and go, okay, I didn't explain this enough, and then this scene here, that's fluff. That doesn't need to be there. Doesn't serve a purpose, and so on and so forth. And you do that when you're editing, and then you come up with your final total. Usually somewhere around 70 to 105, 110,000 words is roughly what my books run. Earthfleet runs about 70 to 75,000. Later ones run upwards of 85,000. Land of the Lions was about 100,000 each. Or I think they were. Let me check. Okay, 104 on the first, 86 on the second, 92 on the third, and 85 on the fourth. So, and one thing I will state right off the bat, and I have a friend who keeps telling me this, and I'm like, I know, and that's, don't write for word count, write for quality, write for what you need to write to tell the story. Like my After Offworld series, I just finished up the final edit on book 3, so the trilogy's done. I'm just waiting for some things to work themselves out before I release that, but the funny thing was, all 3 of them came out to be almost exactly 51,000 words. That was not intentional. That's just how the stories worked themselves out. But yeah, don't write your stories for word count. Write them for, that if they complete and they're only 7. If the story is complete and you've told everything that needs to be told and it's only 70,000, fine. If you want 150,000 and it took that much to tell the story, fine. Like I say, word count doesn't really matter as long as the story is told properly and everything is told that needs to be told. Anyways, back to the book here. This series is I think if it was to be comparable with anything, it's kind of along the somewhat along the lines of C.S. Lewis's Narnia. Primarily like primarily just the first book, Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. The similarities on that, like I say, kind of. Well, the similarities are the fact that you have the good guy, which is Aslan, who's the lion. Then you have the bad guy, who's the witch. And then you have the kids in the middle, who are kind of the champions who work for Aslan and, save the world of Narnia. In Lion in the Wind, that's mixed, or that's, that idea is similar, but the character placement's different. In this one, you have the good guy character, the quote-unquote Jesus character, if you will, which is kind of what Aslan is in the Narnia series. He's kind of the quote-unquote Jesus character. In the Land of the Lions, the Jesus character is called Meshwa. He's the good guy. He's not like Jesus himself, because in the book there's only Meshwa and his dad. That's it. So it does not match up one-to-one with Christianity, where you have the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. This is just, it's his dad and then Meshwa. And Meshwa's the one who's kind of in charge of everything on behalf of his dad. So some similarities, but not the same. And in this case, the heroes aren't kids, they're cybernetic or sentient cybernetic lions. Yes, you heard that right. Sentient cybernetic lions. Hence, Lion in the Wind and Land of the Lions. The thing that's interesting about this is I had to take something that a lot of people aren't really going to think about when they're writing about androids, and I had to flesh that out in the book. That one thing about androids that a lot of people don't think about is humans go from emotion to logic. Androids go from logic to emotion. So he kind of starts out as this completely emotionless sentient machine with a soul, and that's explained in the book. He goes from this completely sentient, or not completely sentient, totally logical machine. Think Commander Data if you want another equal comparison. He went from like completely blunt, flat, logical to having emotion. Now, not all of his brethren did. Some of his brethren took to emotions pretty quickly. Tagani tends to stay very logical his whole life. And Tagani is he's this guy. He's the headline. He's also the very first one, the one that Burgon built. And yes, that's how you pronounce this name here is Tagani. Tagani. It's the spelling doesn't look like this, like the way the name is pronounced, and that's because when I originally built this, and I'll tell you this much, I'm not young enough anymore to do this kind of thing, but when I built the series, to get the right feel for it, for the names, this was done mostly for the names, but I also needed to have a little background, for the language, the language, how the languages worked, because the language that you use determines names, how names are put together and stuff. Because, like as a good example with the Native Americans in the United States, you had the English translation for say what one of the Indian chiefs might be Running Bull. If you think about this, we're going, oh yeah, that's such a funny name. It's like Running Bull or Looks at Clouds or some other thing like that. That was how that worked. In English, we have, our names, we don't correlate a name with a specific meaning. To us, it's just a name, and it tends to be what the parents want and stuff. It's not, it's not something that's related to who you are and your personality and stuff like that. In other cultures, like I say, like the Native Americans, the Hebrews do it, or the Hebrews, yeah, Israelis do it, the Jewish people, they give names based on the character of the person, which means, especially from antiquity, because you might start out with one name, and then as you grow up, because of the way you behave and act and things you've done and stuff, your name might change. That's evidenced in the Bible. You can see that just watching certain people get their names changed. Even Jacob got his name changed to Israel. Abraham got his name changed from Abram to Abraham, and Sarah from Sarai to Sarah. So, there's valid examples of that as actually happening throughout history. So that's just something that happens in languages, is that the name you're given has a meaning. Like mine, Stephen comes from the root word Stephanos, meaning crown. So technically my first name is Crown. If it was to be transliterated or translated literally, it would be, let's see, depending on how the language works, might be a lake of crowns or Crown Lake. And lake could be expanded out to be large body of water. So crown body of water, something like that. If you get my meaning on that. So anyways, I developed a language, and I'm not a linguist, so I just kind of figured out the root basic structure, how the words and the names might work, and things like that. Had an actual infant language that I used to build the names and some of the other stuff in the book. And then I've since forgot how the language works, what the language was, different words and structures and stuff like that. But it was enough to get the names, so that was good for me. But that's why that one sounds so weird, as it's based on the Yixan language, and that was just one of the things that was one of their verbal or language structures. It was part of the structure of their language. So that explains why his name is that way. The original idea for this was spawned by a movie called The Ghost in the Darkness, about two rogue lions that were killing off rail workers in Africa. You can go look it up on IMDb. It's a neat movie. It's a little scary, but it's a neat movie, and it's based on actual history. And I got to looking at that idea, and I thought, I wonder what I could do with this. And I'm not there to copy the idea, but I'm like, what if the heroes of the story were lions instead of the villains? What could I do with that, And, that's kind of where this idea started out. I think this idea actually started forming just a couple years after the Ghost in the Darkness, but took a while for it to actually completely gelled together, and I was working on other stuff in the meantime and learning from those and getting better and stuff. So yeah, this one, like I say, this was first penned in 2003, the original story. Or was it 2002? No, I think it was 2003. I think that's what I said. It was 2003, and then this one was the year after, 2004. Like I say, it took a while for it to grow. By the time this one became mature was about the time I was also starting the Earthfleet saga, which is also part of what got my friends to say, hey, you need to publish. So a lot of hard work over a lot of years to get it to be perfect, but that's half the fun of writing, is getting in there, writing, learning, making mistakes, learning how to fix the mistakes, learning how to make it better, how to get deeper into your characters, how to build them and grow them and mature them, so that you don't have this one flat character that's the same from the beginning to the end of the book. Your characters need to grow and mature. They need to breathe. They need to live. It's like I said with other videos. Your characters need to be as real to you as the person standing next to you. You need to know them inside and out, upside down, just like they're a real person. You should be able to talk about them as though they actually exist. And you should be able to talk about your worlds like you live there. And there's some authors I know of who say that that's how they write. That they write as though they've lived there. Lived there, smelled the flowers, breathed the air, ate the food, all that stuff. It's something that people who really love writing would understand. If you're just somebody who writes because you have to, you're probably not going to understand that. But if writing is in your soul, you will understand that, because it will just flow out of you just so naturally. But anyways, I don't want to drag this off because I'm already at 15 minutes. Go talk your heads off and never get anywhere with this. But anyways, that's kind of how this originally started. Let me get in here and I'll start introducing you to some of the characters. Oops, wrong one. Back that up. Wrong world. Where'd he go? There he is. Anyways. There's 59. Well, I have 59 total characters listed here, but there's more than that. But these are the only ones I actually logged because they were the ones that were relevant to the story. There's other like incidental ones. You see them for a couple paragraphs, they go away. So and those kind of guys I don't list. But anyways, the story starts with Edius Burgon, this gentleman. He's the creator of Tagani and the father of the Burgon Lions. He is a cybernetics genius. There's a quick bit of history on him. He was one of those kind of guys that when he started out with, and I'd have to go reread my own notes because it's been so long, but he started out with one major, got his master's degree in it, and then was like, I think it was engineering. And he's like, nah, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. So he went back, got another master's degree. Did that for a while. Nah, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. Went back, got a third master's degree. Yes, this guy's, he's either a masochist, glutton for punishment, or he just couldn't decide initially what he wanted to, but was smart enough to plow through all of those classes. Well, the third time was a charm because he got into cybernetics and got his doctorate in cybernetics. And one of his greatest dreams was to take the simple robotic technology they had at the time and advance it considerably and make it sentient. But one of the things he found out along the way was that despite the incredible genius that he was, he could not make an android live. He couldn't give it a sentience. And we have machines that are sentient now, but the thing is, they're sentient in a way that's very rigid. To have that natural flow like what a human being has requires a soul. And that's one thing that Burgon found is he could give it artificial intelligence, but it was very cookie cutter. It was very stiff, very cardboard. And as he's doing this, as he's researching this, and this is before even Tagani became a thing, he was researching this. A gentleman named Feral Black, who's the villain of the first story, very dark, evil person. And for you in France, I apologize for this, but this picture fit the profile best. So, anyways. Feral Black is the owner of Cybernetics Cybergenics Incorporated. He is the kind of man that is literally everything robotic, and he comes across Edius. He hears about him while he's in while Edius is still in college getting his doctorate. And the thing that's funny is, like I say, Feral Black, and his name too is a pun. Think about it: feral, cat, black, bad guy. So, anyways, his name's a pun. And yes, I was having fun with those kind of things way back in the day when I was early in my writing and stuff. But anyways, he's got his his ear to the ground for anything and everything. Cybernetic and stuff, because he's got kind of he's got his eye on the world because he wants to take it over, like surprise, surprise, right? Bad guy wants to conquer the world. But in his case, he wants to do it in a way that, he's not going to raise up huge armies and go on big campaigns and stuff. What he's going to do is he's going to weasel his way into everything that he wants. Because what he does is he hires the right people doing the right projects, and he looks like the good guy throughout the entire series until you see little sides of him that make you wonder, but then as you get further into his story, you start to realize he actually is the bad guy. And what's funny is, going back to Farrell Black here, his character profile, ironically enough, if you've ever watched the Three Musketeers from the 80s, the guy who played the Cardinal, I don't know, it was like Peter something or other, but I can't remember the guy's name, but he was my character model for Farrell Black. And the reason, and I'm not talking about the actor, I'm talking about the Cardinal himself. The reason I used him was in the Three Musketeers, that character could go and just literally flip a switch and go from good to evil and back to good just by like flipping a switch. And I thought, that's Farrell Black. That's the personality I want to emulate. So I used him as the character model for Farrell Black. And Farrell's kind of interesting because he, in his efforts to take over the world, is also kind of helping to save it. Because along the way you have the Gorg. Let's see. Okay, so that... I don't have... Oh, there they are, right there. These wonderful ugly dudes. They're kind of like orc/trolls in a sense. Not the brightest bulbs in the box, but definitely very strong, very powerful, very prolific. And they're the bad guys in the book. These guys here, the Sadisons, they're kind of like, elves on steroids with a bad attitude. They are the warrior caste. I actually took some of the inspiration from them from the Star Trek Klingons. Not 100%. I used a couple of different sci-fi races that were similar as the character models, but you could kind of think of them as like the elvish Klingons if you wanted to, just for kicks and giggles. Yigzan, on the other hand, were the quote-unquote humans of the world, and they are, they're the genius scientists, the inventors, the creators. The Gorg are kind of the thugs, the trolls and stuff, and the Sadisons are the warriors. They're the warrior caste, all honor bound and everything. One of the other models I used for them was not just the Klingons, but also kind of the Roman mindset. If you've seen like how Roman centurions and soldiers and stuff acted, they were one of the character models for that. Because I took a bunch of different ones that were warrior races or warrior societies and blended them together to get the Sadisons. Just taking what little bits and pieces of each one that I liked and using them to build the idea in my head of who they were, why they were there, what their likes and dislikes were, what each of them had, and now also going back to the language thing, I built a language for each of them, again, just for the naming, but, and if you think about it, and the way the names work, Yigzan, if you really think deep about it, it sounds very scientific-y. If you think about the Gorg, it's like, ooh, brute, yeah, kind of that Warcraft grunt type, or troll grunt or whatever type thing. It's like ooga, I am grunt, and the Sadisons are like, we are proud warriors and we shall, win this battle or die in honor, that kind of thing. So that's kind of what I did to build those, and I had fun with it. I mean, some of those are cliche stereotypes, but I had fun working with them, and it was fun kind of remodeling them into ways that could be used in the story to make the story unique. Meshwa, this guy right here, again, like I said, was the Christ-type character, and his arch enemy, who kind of is the quote-unquote devil character in this, is Nagago. This dude is just death incarnate, just scary freaking dude. He's just, last guy you want to meet even on a sunny day. Anyways, yeah, and I even have, this the Yigzan version of Hell, if you will, and also these guys are the Midison. Now, the Midison are an interesting one because the Midison are actually Yigzan, and you're probably going, huh? Give you a quick history on that. Back 1,200 years before the events of Lion in the Wind, the Yigzan were all one people. The Midison didn't exist. In fact, the only Midison that existed at that time was Councilman Midison, from which this group takes their name. And kind of the TLDR on that is that Midison, not Midison, well, this is more covered in Book 3. But like I say, the TLDR of it is a couple of the lions got sent back in time, which then which then spawned a technological revolution. They went from living kind of 1st century AD, Jerusalem level technology to, they were suddenly handed all of these really cool technological advances, which, when you look at them, you think, oh, those are pretty primitive. But for them, they were just groundbreaking. Things like windmill pumps and a variety of other little bits and pieces of technology. And just simple technology, stuff that's not like groundbreaking to us, but to them it was just revolutionary. It changed their whole world just almost overnight. And it spawned the Great Awakening, which the Great Awakening was kind of their version of the Renaissance. And that kicked off their return. And you find that out in Book 3, why I say return to a society of technological science and advancement and research and things like that. Because they start from high-end technology, come to the planet, lose that technology intentionally because they want to get away from that technology. So their ancestors went back to a very primitive way of living. And of course, as you know, that without a regular injection of technology and without the constant pursuit of technology, society degrades. Society devolves down to the highest possible level that they can sustain with the people that they have and the technology that they're able to maintain. So, I mean, that's even pointed out in doomsday and apocalyptic films and books and stuff like that. That like, modern 21st century. Oh, we just got hit by an asteroid, or oh, we just got nuked into oblivion. We just lost all of our technology. Now you're back to, anywhere from 12 to 1600s level living. With the effort being as you're losing your technology because 3/4 of the world's population got wiped out, or there was this big global famine that starved out most of the people. The people you have left, they're going to have to work to cushion the fall, because you're going to go down until you hit a point where you can maintain that level of technology. Give it a little time after that, and then you can start coming back up. I was trying to think which one it was. Well, Stephen King's The Stand is a good example of that. Mad Max is a good example of that, where a major global event which killed off a large portion of the population happens and a large amount of the technology is lost. Some of it's maintained, but a large amount of it's lost because the knowledge that allowed that technology to exist, as well as the infrastructure and resources and things like that, are gone or greatly damaged, diminished, etc. like that. So you're gonna taper off pretty quickly in technology and resources until you get to a level that you can maintain. And then over time, you can then start working your way back up as you're able to reestablish all of those support structures. So that's kind of what happened here that got them to this point of living sort of 1st century AD by the time the lions showed up. And then after that, they start back up the hill again, because now they're reinvigorated to go back and start learning science and technology and regain everything that their ancestors gave up or lost. So anyways, let's see here. Try to figure out where I want to go next. Oh, yeah. That's what it was. Let me back up here. Proxies. There we go. Okay, take a right turn here. Anyways, in the first book, you're introduced to Meshwa when he gives Tagani, after he's been built by Burgon. After he's been built by Burgon and programmed, and Burgon's working with him and stuff like this, you meet Meshwa for the first time. And you start learning about this little proxy war that's been going on in the background between Meshwa and Nagago. Meshwa's way stronger than Nagago. So, I mean, if he wanted to, he could just go flick and Nagago's gone. Just that easily. However, he is using Meshwa is using Nagago as a way to kind of separate the wheat from the chaff, or the wheat from the tares, in a sense. So he allows Nagago to do his thing. They kind of have this truce, because, like I say, Nagago knows he can't beat Meshwa in a one-on-one fight. Even if he hauled out everybody from Verac, he still couldn't win. I mean, it's like Meshwa's so OP that Nagago doesn't have a chance of beating him, which is part of why he's in the position he's in, because when he rebelled, he got his butt handed to him, and now he's on the losing end of things. But anyways, he does eventually convince Meshwa to kind of this battle of proxies, where they are not going to directly get involved themselves, but they will get involved through proxies. And all throughout the history of the galaxy, and including Bersail, where the Yigzan and the others live, the two of them are constantly fighting this proxy war. Before this, it had been Yigzan, Gorg, Sadison, Abernai, etc., who were the proxies to help Meshwa keep on the winning side. And Tagani is kind of the latest of those. Tagani and then his later siblings are the latest of those proxies. So basically, Meshwa takes these living creatures up to this point and uses them to protect the galaxy as his proxies. But then he comes up to Tagani and just kind of takes this right turn, or left turn, whichever way you want to look at it, and he starts using them instead as the tools to continue his plans forward, to eventually completely defeat Nagago, but also complete his desire, his and his father's desire to kind of separate the wheat and the tares, if you will, in the galaxy. Let me see. Okay, well, let us go back here. We'll go down to the Burgon Lions. The Burgon Lions, like I say, they're sentient cybernetic lions. There's quite a few of them. Tagani, Pen, Tiel, Yateka, Sabo, Nakasa, etc., You meet the different ones throughout the series, and they're not just like, I'm going to run around, roar, I'm a lion, I'm going to, be a lion and stuff. These guys actually pick up different hobbies, they have different skills. They have a family hierarchy. There's Tagani, who's the top dog, or top lion in this case. Then what's called the original 5, which are the next 5 created after him, because Burgon created Tagani first. Then he created 5 additional ones, based on everything he'd learned from building Tagani. And Tagani went through 2 different bodies initially. In total, the lion family as a whole went through 2 bodies. He went through 3, and that's explained in the books. But yeah, he went through his original body, which they found out wasn't terribly durable. They found that out the hard way, so they had to bring him in, swap him out, literally transfer his consciousness over to the new body, which is the same body that the other original 5 get. That body gets destroyed later, and then they get another one that's also built by Burgon. Well, it's designed by Burgon, it's built by Brakeman. And then they run with that one for the rest of their lives. So, kind of a neat way to upgrade, It's like, as I get older, I kind of wish I had the ability to just, swap bodies and go back to being, physically 20 years old again. I'm like, that'd be so cool. But let me think here. Oh yeah, there's Brakeman. This guy's kind of cool. Brakeman is similar to Tagani, except he's initially created as an assistant to Persia. And let me see if I can find Persia here. Okay. There she is. Okay, Persia's an interesting one that came about thanks to the Yixan. Actually, a very crooked and corrupt Yixan, but she was a good product that came out of it. The only one of her kind. She is a genetic hybrid. She's part Yixan and part snow tiger. So she has the ability to speak, the ability to reason. She's very intelligent. And she ends up becoming kind of the unofficial mom to all of the Burgon lions, because it's Tagani who originally treats her as his mom, and his reason for seeing her as his mom is completely logical, and it's hilarious because she's kind of like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And Tagani sees Dr. Burgon as his dad, so kind of this unofficial mom and dad vibe with him. And she plays out through the whole first book, and she's a big influencer to the lions, especially Tagani in the original 5. She's a huge influence to them. And like I say, that Brakeman is originally created as for using a service droid that Burgon reprograms to be her assistant, because there's going to be a lot of times that he can't be there for her. So he creates Brakeman, which she calls him Brakeman because when Burgon asks her why, he says because he looks like a breakable little man. So again, pun. Anyways, he starts out, and he's a scrawny little thing, like just barely 3 feet tall, not very big at all. Just a little service droid, humanoid service droid, but still. And what's interesting about him is Meshwa comes to him and gives him a soul. And the funny thing is, the personality of Brakeman is this sarcastic, scrappy little guy with the biggest heart possible. And a neat thing about him is, let's see if I got it here somewhere. If not, I'll search for it. Nope, don't have it. Okay. We'll do it this way then. These guys right here end up being Brakeman's right-hand men. They're little itty-bitty scout spiders. Probably about the size of a large muskmelon. And they're used for a whole variety of things. Their primary purpose is as scouts. But they're used for a lot of different things. And because Brakeman is so small, he basically hires a whole bunch of these guys, takes charge of them, turns them into his willing servants, and eventually gives them a low level of sentience. No souls in them, just a low level of sentience, where they can think and reason for themselves and follow all of his orders. They can't speak. They do kind of like chirp and communicate through like little electronic text messages, because they can. The Burgon lions and Brakeman and the spiders can all talk back and forth, like they're on Wi-Fi or broadband or something like that, or wireless broadband. They can talk with each other over the airwaves, and these guys, they don't physically talk or do anything audibly like that. If they talk, it's like they send text messages to Brakeman, and he can talk to them and they can understand him, but they can't talk back. They just have to send him like these little text messages, so to speak, and he reads those. But they're his little buddies. They do a lot for him, and he ends up starting out with just these little guys. They're, like I said, about the size of a large muskmelon. They can go all kinds of places, and they're used like I say, primarily for spying. They use, for him, they're his extended eyes and ears. They help him with a whole lot of stuff, and there's a lot of them. So they kind of grow and mature with him. Eventually, when let me go back to Brakeman here. Eventually, later on, after book 2, Brakeman gets an upgrade. Only one, but he gets an upgrade. He gets rid of his old body here and takes on a Yigzan form. And that's revealed in book 2 that this body and all of the parts it's made of are a creation of Dr. Slough. And they find that when they go searching for him. And Brakeman's like, oh, I can use this. So he takes it back, reverse engineers it, and replicates it and makes himself a Yigzan-sized body. Well, size, appearance, etc. like that. And he stops being this scrappy little guy here and becomes this scrappy big guy here. There's the Scout Spiders. Yeah, anyways, he upgrades himself. Not in the first book, but, like I say, there's a lot he does, and he escapes death on quite a few occasions. He's a huge help to the family. He starts out as an outsider, but is eventually adopted into the family, and Meshwa helps with that. He carries on with the family through all 4 books. Trying to think what else I would want to cover because I'm running out of time here. Oh yeah. Yeah, there's other characters. Let me go back to that characters page. There he is. Yeah, there's other characters. I'm trying to think here. Yeah, there's Owick. I had to reuse it because I couldn't find any more pictures that were really good like this of the Sadisons, so I recycled it on a few of them. But that, they're close enough in appearance. You wouldn't notice a difference anyways. But yeah, there's Owick. There's let's see. Yeah, there's Odevian. He's Special Forces. He's really cool. He's a major player in the story. Pentel. He's a officer in the Yigzan army. Smart dude. He does a lot with. Well, he's assigned to Tagani. I could say Tagani's assigned to him, but really he's assigned to Tagani to be kind of his overwatch as Tagani and his brethren go out into the field to try to defeat the Gorg during the Gorg War, which happens in book 1. Let me see. Yeah, Fairgant. That's that's not like the best picture, but that's the best I could come up with of a Gorg in combat gear. He's kind of like, he's like Owick and Odevian in the fact that they're special forces, but he's one of the good guys, where the regular Gorg are the bad guys in the book, or the first book. He's one of the good guys, and he realizes that it's the Midizin that are stirring the pot and causing all the trouble. But there's a lot of different characters in there. There's like Rose. She plays a small part in the first book. Is kind of I would say a hands-off love interest. They like, her and Burgon like each other, but they're so wrapped up in their work they don't get much further than just being friends. She's the one that brings Persia over to Edius, and she also helps Tagani in the second book in getting his, coming together, and she helps him get started on his journey that leads to the Eastern Continent, the discovery of the Horde, running into Dr. Slough, and other stuff like that. So, and again, I'm running out of time, so I'm going to stop there. If you want to read more, especially about the original 5, you can. One thing I will say that I didn't cover, but I probably should, is the fact that one of the things Burgon did, and this is more, this isn't anything about sex or gender or anything like that. It's more helpmate type thing, where they would pair off in male-female pairs when operating. And it's something that they could all be guys or all be girls. It didn't matter, but that was just Burgon's preference, that he wanted one guy and one girl. Because he wanted them to look natural when they were out in the wild. They didn't want somebody to go look at them and go, oh, those are Burgon lions. He wanted them, if you didn't know that they were Burgon lions when they were out in the field, he wanted you to not realize they were Burgon lions. He wanted you to think they were just a regular lion in the prairie. So he paired them up just like you would see them naturally in the wild with, male-female pairing. And their bodies underneath their skin or their artificial coats looks the same regardless if they're male or female. I mean, it's not until you get the actual overcoat on them that they're distinguished male to female. And like I say, that's just that was just a practical thing for so that when regular Yixan were wandering by, it's just a lion, because for them the lions were just like the local neighborhood tabby cats. The lions didn't mess with them, they didn't mess with the lions. Of course, lions didn't mess with them because the lions found out the hard way that's a bad idea. So they ended up later on having a good relationship with the lions that were on the planet. And the Burgon lions were there to, like I say, blend in, because that was part of his reasoning for doing it that way, and also the fact that, like I say, he wanted to create a sentient cybernetic tiger, or lion, excuse me, sentient cybernetic lion that looked and felt and acted exactly like the real thing, minus the fact that they could talk and reason and learn and all that stuff. So, anyways, that's all for this time. I'll go ahead and pick this up next time and go into more of the world, the lions, group, the original 5, and just the different roles of the various lions that were in there. Because, like I say, there's a lot of interesting characters in here, and I'll cover each of them a bit more in the next video. So, catch you guys later.